that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Energy Week. This is our 327th.
Yes, it is. 327.
327. Right? Today is the 18th of July, 2019, and we are covering the dates starting July 11th and going up to July 17th. Every day I get up, and first thing I do in the morning is go through news on energy and climate change. And I find news items, and I put together a 50 to 55 word synopsis with a link to the original article. For each, I put 10 to 15 of these up at my blog, and then Tom and I get together and deal with them here and present about the 2021 that are the most interesting from the previous week. The blog is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. I'm sorry for the name. I had to fill in a box and I couldn't think of anything, so that's what went in. That's that. I should say more, actually, because if you want to read one of these articles, you go to the blog, you click on the date on the calendar, and you'll find it among the 15.
It's a little bit tricky sometimes to do that, but some of these are worth looking up.
Yeah.
Some of them, well, as I've said before, we could devote a whole show to.
We sure could.
I think once or twice we actually have. We made a special out of it.
We've made specials out of some of these. I don't know about a particular article, but we've certainly made specials out of specific
computer go to sleep here?
issues. I don't know.
I don't either. I'm pushing the button, nothing's happening.
Try tapping on the thing there. Nothing's happening?
It's just, well, something's happening, but it isn't what I want. I got it.
You got it, okay.
It just went to sleep on me.
Yeah, well, keep moving that.
Works for a union.
What? Works for a union. Oh, okay. Well, that explains everything. Anyway, we're starting on the 11th of July.
We're going to start with a graph, aren't we?
We start with a graph, and actually this looks kind of awful, but I want to explain something about that graph. That graph shows the amount of money that has been spent on renewable energy worldwide by year halves. Huh?
It's investors.
It's investors.
Yeah.
Year halves starting in 2004, and from the graph you would assume that really there hasn't been a lot of change since 2010, but remember, this is the amount of money that is spent, and it does not represent the amount of capacity that's been installed. As the price of capacity has gone down, the amount of money needed to install capacity has gone up. So even though the first half of 2019 might not be all that different from the first half of 2010, there's probably been 4 times as much capacity installed for that amount of money.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it shows a little bit different picture.
Oh,
than
yeah,
the graph does.
yeah, it does. Anyway, what do you have for a title there, Tom?
Well, the title says renewable energy investment dips 14% to $117.6 billion in the first half.
Renewable energy investment dropped 14% to $217.6 billion in the first half of 2019. According to the latest figures from Bloomberg NEF, the report said renewable energy investment in the world's biggest market, China, fell 39% to $28.8 billion.
Well, it seems kind of pessimistic, but it isn't all that bad, as you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
The investments are going further.
Yes.
And the other thing is, despite this came from the article, we expect a rush of new PV project financings.
Yes.
Okay, we also see several big deals in offshore wind in the second half. And offshore wind activity is broadening its geographical focus.
Another thing is China China is kind of spotty in the way that it does things sometimes. They will put together a policy and then they'll stop the policy a year or two later. And the
That's
result
politics,
of that,
but it's happening.
It happens in China. And I think later in this broadcast we'll talk about China more and hear that they're picking up in a different direction. But that article, by the way, came from Green Tech Lead.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Let's hit the next one here.
Okay, Modern Diplomacy gave us this one.
Yeah, this is interesting. The U.S. is the world's largest producer of fossil fuels.
Yeah, this is one of those things that we could do an entire show on.
Yeah, we could.
BP's Statistical Review World Energy 2019 was released in June, and the findings reveal that the United States is leading the world in production of fossil fuels.
That's interesting.
Yeah, among the important facts in the review, one thing stood out. The U.S. made 98% of total global additions. This is an astonishing figure. And what this means is 98% of the
you better explain what this means.
98% of the investment in fossil fuels is in the United States.
Yeah.
Why?
Fracking.
Well, my gosh, Tom, do you suppose the rest of the world knows something Donald Trump doesn't know? Really, honest to goodness.
There's nothing Donald Trump doesn't know.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes, I forgot. I'm sorry. Basically, what this means is Saudi Arabia is not investing in fracking, and neither is, Libya or
I don't
the
know
UK.
that fracking would help much in Saudi Arabia. The oil's near the surface already.
Okay.
I mean, you just put a drinking straw
down there. Yeah.
Well, the report counters prevailing wisdom that peak oil demand is rapidly happening when the exact opposite is taking place. Peak oil demand is going down. The world is using more, not less, energy, with the U.S. leading this surge. And this is a bad one. Whoever controls energy controls the world.
Yeah, but the United States is not going to control energy if it's using early 20th century technologies to do it. And I'm sorry, fracking is not a 21st century technology. It's not going to supply the world.
It's not going to last forever.
No, and the world is obviously making its investment in other places.
They're finding out, for one thing, that the fracked oil fields are failing far earlier than they ever expected them to.
Yeah.
They're running out.
Yeah, and the people who are doing investment in fracking, as we had an article last show, they're losing money like mad.
Yes, we saw that.
The investors are just being done out of their money.
They're walking away.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Another one's coming up here. This is interesting.
From Utility Dive.
NREL study shows mass potential for storage to provide peaking capacity. And we're going to find out what NREL means.
Well, the NREL is the Department of Energy's National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is just a fascinating operation. The DOE's NREL found that 4 hours of storage could meet peaking capacity across the country with the potential to exceed 50 gigawatts. Currently, fossil fuels are backed up by 261 gigawatts of peaking capacity.
So this is very interesting.
This is
amazing. Plants are expensive.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, what it's saying here is peaking capacity needs can be met by short-duration 4-hour battery storage systems. Wow.
Wow. And, our next article is going to say something about the cost of electricity from those batteries.
Well, let's take a look at it.
Before we do, what they're saying is where fossil fuels, baseload power, nuclear, gas, coal, need 261 gigawatts of peaking capacity, and peaking power is the most expensive thing you can get.
By quite a bit.
We're talking about 27 cents per kilowatt hour wholesale.
Yeah.
And,
versus a nickel or less.
Or less. And the utilities have to buy this and then distribute the money over the cost of what they're giving the consumers, because consumers pay a fixed amount. But 261 gigawatts can be replaced by 50 gigawatts.
Guess what? They're going to do it.
Huh?
Guess what?
Yeah, well, let's go to that
It's
next
gonna
article, which is on Friday, July 12th. And there's a
Got another
picture
picture
here.
coming up here. Let me see if I
That's
can
an interesting
get it.
solar farm. It looks like, almost like,
I don't think it's real yet.
you don't think it's real yet?
I don't think so. I think it's a
Oh,
artist's conception.
yeah, artist conception.
big one,
It
for
might
sure.
be. It looked like it might have been concentrating solar to me, but those are not reflectors. Those are PV panels. So the fact that there's lines running through, light-colored line running through each
yeah.
one, that's not pipes conducting molten salt or anything like that. That's for some other reason. And I think that it might be a seasonal tracking system where they can adjust the angle of the panels. Anyway, what do you have for a title on this?
Giant batteries and cheap solar power are shoving fossil fuels off the grid.
This is from Science Magazine. Los Angeles is expected to approve a deal for a solar farm and battery to provide 7% of the electricity for the city at 1.997 cents per kilowatt hour for
Good
the
price.
solar power
That's a good price.
and 1.3 cents per kilowatt hour for the battery. That's cheaper than any power generated by fossil fuel or nuclear power. Now, this is the thing, Tom. This is the thing. You remember when Vermont Yankee told the people of Vermont, "We'll give you a price you can't refuse,"
Yeah, and we refused it.
and we refused it. Why did we refuse it?
We got it
Because
cheaper.
We got it cheaper. We could get power cheaper from Hydro-Quebec at 6 cents per kilowatt hour than what they were offering, which was 6.5.
Yeah.
Now, this is solar power at less than 2.
Yeah.
Now, you remember just the previous article, we were talking about 50 kilowatts of batteries as opposed to 261? But it's 50 kilowatts at 1.3 cents as opposed to 261 at 27 cents. Who do you suppose is going to win in this competition? Oh, well.
Well, the short takeaway from the article here is the deal calls for a 400 megawatt solar farm. That's pretty big.
It's big, yeah.
Backed up by an 800 megawatt hour battery, which is one of the world's largest.
That's big.
Okay, so this is a big concept.
This is a big concept. 800 megawatt hours would be, I believe, the biggest battery in the world.
Well, it's certainly one of the world's largest.
Oh,
if
yeah,
not the biggest.
absolutely. Well,
It's
the
up there.
Hornsdale Power Reserve was, I think, 130 megawatt hours.
I don't remember the number.
It was over 100, but it was not much over 100. So, anything else on that one?
No, we've covered that one. Let's get to the next one here.
Next one's from CNN.
This is kind of interesting too.
Yes, it is.
It's Lindsey Graham versus Donald Trump on climate change. And for what it's worth, Lindsey Graham is a Republican.
Lindsey Graham is not just a Republican.
He's not.
He is one
He-
of Donald Trump's greatest supporters.
Traditionally,
Yeah. Lindsey Graham is sounding an alarm on climate change and hoping to make it loud enough for President Trump to hear. Graham said acknowledging and embracing climate change as an issue in the GOP can be a good thing, and the party is ignoring it at its own peril.
well, this is from CNN, and like a lot of this stuff from CNN, it's worth looking up and watching.
Yeah, it is.
There's a 2-minute video here about it that's worth looking
Yeah.
at. And there's a quote from the article. This is Lindsey Graham speaking. I would encourage the president to look long and hard at the science and find a solution. The only way you're going to win the debate is to admit we've got a problem.
And you know what? I think that this is the single biggest problem we've got. And if Donald Trump doesn't address it, if he just continues to say it's a hoax through his presidential career, he's going to wind up being regarded as, without question, the worst president we've ever had.
Well, there's a lot of people right now who say
A lot of people say that, but what I'm saying is out there in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
the people are going to be saying, wow, we got hit by a con artist. He's got to deal with this. And, I'm going to remind you that I'm not talking about this from the point of view of a person who has embraced socialism exactly. I'm talking about this from the point of view of being a person who voted consistently Republican for 50 years. And this is almost 45 years. Last election, I wrote in Bernie Sanders because he was the closest thing I could find to Theodore Roosevelt. And I'm not
mentioned
joking.
that before.
I have.
Yeah. It's pretty accurate.
I think it is. You know, I walked up to Emily Kornheiser, who's one of the reps from Brattleboro in Montpelier.
Yeah.
And I said something to her about that, and she said, "Oh yeah." She had actually read the 2016 presidential position of Bernie Sanders and compared it to Theodore Roosevelt.
She did her homework.
She did her homework. Well, Emily is a very bright girl. She's one of several people in this area who are really, I think, pretty promising. Becca Balint, I think, is just amazing, and you know.
Yeah, I've been following Becca. I like Becca.
Oh, Becca's terrific. She really is. And of course, what did she do? She got elected to the Senate. And what's the first thing she did? Well, not the first thing, but early on in her career, she becomes the Senate leader.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Amazing.
Well, it's because she's a ball of fire.
She is.
She's a ball of fire. She's very intelligent, and she has got integrity, which I think we need more than party positions.
And she knows what she's doing.
She knows what
She really
she's doing.
knows what she's doing.
Okay.
Let's move along here.
We better,
Got another
because
picture
otherwise
coming
Becca
up.
is going to be mad at me.
We've got another picture coming up.
We do, and this is from something I've never really seen of before. You know, every time I come up with a new source, I've got to look at that source and find out, not only does it work on this computer that I'm using, will it work on that computer? So I've got to test, and this is one of the ones I usually test about 8 of them or 10 a day. But who, what, why is what this is called as a source.
Well, what it is saying is why the future is bright for 100% clean energy.
Yeah, this is interesting. A city in Texas with oil derricks on its license plates. A Kansas town devastated by a tornado. I know which one that is. In fact, I know the one in Texas, too. An isolated Alaskan island known for its huge bears. I know that one, too. What do they have in common? All are in red states, yet their electricity is generated 100% from renewable energy sources. And in Greensboro, Kansas, by the way, which is a town that they're, city actually, it's a tiny city, city that they're talking about here.
Well, this is interesting. There's a lot of good pictures in this article.
Yeah.
If you like pictures, it's fun.
People in Greensburg like to brag that their little city is 100% powered by wind, 100% of the time.
We've talked about it.
We have indeed. So,
well, from the article, in all of these 3 places, the switch from fossil fuels to clean energy was found to be more economical.
oh yeah,
Okay? A lot of the opposition to renewables has been coming from utilities determined to hang on to their antiquated business models. Which is true.
buggy whip manufacturers
Absolutely.
intent on maintaining buggies as our preferred mode of transportation in the United States. We are up to Saturday, July 13th.
We got an interesting one here.
Oh, this is really
An Indian water train arrived. That's India from India.
Yeah.
It's not Wahoo. A train carrying. I'll read the. I'm reading your part. Indian water train arrives with desperately needed relief for Chennai, which is one of the southernmost cities in India.
Yeah,
which is
and it's
dry,
big. It's
man.
big. A train carrying 2.5 million liters of water rolled into the southern Indian city of Chennai, providing desperately needed relief to residents who had been facing an acute water shortage for the past month. I got news for you. This water shortage hasn't been just the past month.
No, it's been going on for a year.
Yeah. And the problem is it has become critical for the last month. This
Absolutely.
is the first water train for the city's 4.5 million people. And the thing that struck me...
the picture was the first water train, but they're still going on.
Oh, they're still going on. But
They have the water.
This was the first. They had been bringing it in by truck. That train was met by a crowd of people celebrating its arrival.
Yes, yeah. The article shows you that.
Yeah, that train was carrying 2.5 million liters for 4.5 million people. They were celebrating getting a little over a pint of water each.
Wow. I
That's-
didn't put the math together.
That
Wow.
is how awful the situation in Chennai is.
Well, there's a video in this article. It's from CNN again. It's a good one. Millions of people are running out of water. It takes 2 minutes and it's worth watching.
Yeah. And another problem here is this particular issue is spreading in India. And
Well, yeah.
there's a,
Chennai is in the southeast of India and it's spreading north.
yep. And meanwhile, the places that are spreading, it's spreading to, some of them are flooded, which just go figure.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. Basically what's happening is the situation in India, as in the world, has become one in which extreme weather is becoming more and more problematical, which means we could go from flooding to drought and back in cycles.
It seems to be happening in places.
It is. Absolutely it is.
Let's
And
move along here.
Let's move along.
Got
and
another picture coming
We
up.
do. And this also is from CNN. And this will tell you something about the flooding side of the story.
Well, the interesting part about this picture is it took place before the hurricane.
Yes, this was before the flood. This is the way it was before the flood.
New Orleans faces a never-before-seen problem with Tropical Storm Barry.
The Mississippi River, which is usually at 6 to 8 feet in midsummer in New Orleans, is now 16 feet, now being just before
That's why
Barry
we're
hit.
looking at that guy.
Owing to the record spring flooding along the waterway, Barry is threatening a storm surge of 2 to 3 feet at the mouth of the river, which will bring cresting at 19 feet, and some of the levees were in fact breached after that picture was taken. And, you know, there were places in Louisiana where they were expecting at any rate 20 inches of rain.
Yeah.
And
And
you
they
know,
got that
oh my
pretty close.
gosh, they're expecting 20 inches of rain. They're already at flood stage.
Yeah. Boy.
So, and this,
Tell you you're in Louisiana property quick.
oh, this is a situation where the storm that came was not even really a hurricane. It just barely ticked into being a hurricane.
It didn't have the wind, but it did have the rain.
Exactly. And what is this? Well, when water is warmer, it gives up vapor more easily. When the air is warmer, it accepts the vapor more easily.
Yeah.
And guess what? Somewhere up there in the sky, it's going to
gotta
be
come down.
really, really cold. And we mix all that together, and you've got downpours. And what this means is the downpours that we're getting are getting heavier.
Well, the sewers couldn't handle the rain.
Absolutely.
And there are 3 ways that Louisiana floods. And this happened, well, storm surge, okay, high rivers, and rain. And this storm gave them all 3.
All 3. And the flip side of this is because the weather is warmer, it also takes up more water out of dry soil. So that's
Just
why
makes things worse.
that's why we're having droughts more and rainfalls more. And by the way, along with the rainfalls, we can expect to have heavier snow, even though it is a result of climate change. Global warming
That's interesting.
produces heavier snow because
Yeah.
the warm air accepts
wetter stuff.
It's wetter stuff. And if that, 20 inches of rain, if it had been snow, it would have been 25 feet of snow.
Well, let's move along here.
Okie dokie.
A pathway to 350 ppm parts per million. Carbon sequestration is vital. By the way, this is one of 2 parts. We're going to cover a second
That's
part later.
right. That's right. I usually don't pick articles that are parts of series.
Well, this is good.
But this was
is a good
one that I
good
figured.
lesson here.
This is from Clean Technica. According to Hansen et al., that's James Hansen.
James Hansen, he said this in 2008.
Yeah, I was going to say he said this a while ago. A safe level for atmospheric CO2 to avert runaway global warming is below 350 parts per million. We are now at 414 parts per million and climbing. So we have to work seriously. We have our work seriously cut out for us, not only to reduce emissions, which we really haven't started doing, but sequester, well, we have, but we haven't done it enough. But sequester greenhouse gases from the atmosphere.
Well, this is an interesting concept. I mean, I learned a lot from this article.
Yeah,
We need to take the CO2 out of the atmosphere.
we need to.
That's
No
a
question.
no-brainer.
We
And
need
store
to.
it away.
Yep,
And the best way to store it away is using the natural photosynthesis of plants
right.
to store the carbon atoms in the stems and roots of trees.
Yes.
So planting trees is a very inexpensive option.
Planting trees is a very inexpensive option, that's
The
right.
drawback is that they require space and lots of it.
Yes.
And they do say this, to sequester 20 gigatons would require planting an area the size of North America. But as the second article will tell us, it's doable.
It's doable, even though it sounds outrageous. And
doable.
honestly, I think we could plant an area bigger than North America.
I think the article
and,
says
and
that.
not all that without much difficulty. So we're up to Sunday, July 14th, and we have an
a
article
picture
here
coming up here.
from Gov Insider. Tom, when you were a kid, did you watch Victory at Sea?
Yeah.
Do you happen to remember the episode that they did on the Burma Road?
No, I don't.
Well, it was the
No,
one
I
that I always thought was the best, and I remember that from those days.
Uh-huh.
You know, what were they, 65 years ago? And whenever I think of Myanmar, which of course is Burma, I think of that issue of the Burma Road.
I've seen pictures of the Burma Road. It's amazing.
That's amazing,
It
absolutely.
goes back and forth and back and forth and back and
You can have a picture with 9 hairpin turns on it. One picture. Okay, what do you got?
How solar microgrids are powering Myanmar's villages.
Yeah, this
Duh.
is really good though. This is Gov Insider. I think I've said that already, but I want to make sure. Yoma Micropower is building solar power and microgrids in Myanmar. Each of its 51 micro plants can power a small town in its surrounding areas. By the end of 2019, Yoma Micropower plans to build 200 more solar power plants, and it is just one of the country's microgrid pioneers.
Well, it's interesting. There's a picture in this article
Yes.
of one of his micro plants.
Yes.
And boy, it looks just like the little installations out on Western Avenue. That's
Yes.
the notes.
Well, the thing that's interesting about this is you think this is a small business. This could
It
have been
is.
started by a couple of guys in a garage, and they're talking about putting in 200 solar power plants,
Little solar power
each
plants.
one of which will bring them a little bit of money every year. They're going to get rich.
I think they are already.
And every time I think about this, I think about the people who are saying we shouldn't be investing in renewable energy because it'll cost so much. And they came up with, you might remember a couple of weeks ago, a figure of a cost of, what was it, $4.5 trillion to get to 100% renewable in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about that, they're saying it's going to cost too much, $4.5 trillion. Now, let's look at that from a different point of view. That $4.5 trillion means $4.5 trillion of business activity, $4.5 trillion of jobs. That's the big.
And they're not big business jobs. They're small.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Big business is against this,
Yeah.
with few exceptions.
Well, they got these little grids all over the place.
All
they
over
don't
the
need
place.
transmission lines, which they didn't have to begin with anyhow.
Makes it cheap, don't it?
So they've got very evenly distributed power.
Yeah, and they
And
can
it's
give it to
all
anybody.
islandable.
They can give it to everybody.
Yeah.
So this is a different ballpark.
It's a totally different concept.
Yeah.
And it's a good one.
Yeah, but it's going to put the buggy whip manufacturers out of business.
Oh, well. Sell your stock.
I got news for you. There are still, to this day, buggy whip manufacturers.
Are there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, our next item is from CNN.
It is that.
Yes.
Barry moves deeper into Louisiana with more rain on the way. So this is part 2 of what we've
Well,
already
yeah.
talked about.
Tropical Storm Barry, and I should point out that things with Barry didn't come down quite as badly as some people expected. It was bad,
yeah,
but it wasn't as bad as it
still
could have
brought a
been.
lot more rain, especially to the north of Louisiana, where
Yeah.
they weren't expecting it.
Yeah. Tropical Storm Barry moved deeper inland, dumping heavy rain and overtopping levees in areas along the Louisiana coastline. Tropical storm force winds extended up 175 miles outward from the storm's center, but the rainfall always posed the greatest threat. Part of the problem with this storm was that it was moving slowly.
Yes.
So the rain just stayed in one place.
Again, it's CNN. They've got a 2-minute video,
Yep.
which, interestingly enough, is a weather report.
Yes.
You know, so it's just the guy telling a weather report off the TV.
Yep.
Nice pics in the article, and the article also mentioned that they're having trouble with the sewers.
Oh, yeah.
As the storm continues to move north, more of the system will hover over land, and that's where the rain is going to come from. Well, they said this has now happened.
Yeah.
This is past
And
tense.
as the storm moved north and east, it broke up, and we were expecting heavy rain from that pattern of stuff yesterday, but we got a little rain.
We didn't get what we were.
We didn't get what we need. Okay, we've got an item here from an organization called Mashable Southeast Asia.
And that is smoke rising over the forests of Alaska and Siberia.
Yeah, so why are the people in Southeast Asia publishing articles about the Arctic? I don't know, but nevertheless, what do you have for a title?
Unprecedented fires burn the Arctic.
The wildfires now burning around the Arctic are unprecedented, according to the World Meteorological Organization. The UN agency noted that over 100 intense fires burned in the Arctic Circle alone over the past 6 weeks, releasing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in those 6 weeks than Sweden does in an entire year.
Well, Alaska just had its warmest 12-month period on record. Okay? Over the course of 10 days in July, Alaskan wildfires burned an area the size of Rhode Island. Okay? This July, Anchorage hit 90 degrees F. Well, you know, I got a picture that I took off the web which shows a bank in Anchorage. And it's the thermometer says 100 degrees.
Yeah. That's probably a thermometer that's really near.
It's in the sun.
It's not only in the sun. It's probably in the middle of a parking lot that gives off heat because
Could be something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is something I've always noticed is that
It's by a Walgreens for what that's worth.
banks that are are surrounded by big parking lots.
Yeah, they get hot.
They get hot. Okay.
Well, we got another one here that's interesting.
We are up to Monday, July 15th, and I've just switched to the next photo, but that photo isn't for this
I
article.
won't bring it up yet.
We have an article from CNN, and there were good pictures with this article, but I just didn't put one into the show.
America is building another big wall.
Yeah.
This one will protect New York.
By 2025, New York's Staten Island will be fortified by a towering seawall running 5.3 miles along the coast, an engineering feat designed to ward off a growing threat. The climate crisis is predicted to create more powerful and extreme weather systems all over the world.
Well, there's some nice pictures of the wall, and it's interesting. It's not just a wall.
There's a
walkway
on top.
and a bicycle path. And
Yeah.
It really looks like a pretty nice thing.
Yeah.
Now, the back story here is this particular Staten Island coast is very vulnerable because it's at the top of New York Harbor, but it's right facing where the ocean is, so it gets blasted.
Yep.
When the winds are right, it gets blasted.
Do you know what a white is?
A what?
White? I think that's the word. Bite. It's B-I-G-H-T.
Yeah.
Bite. I'm sorry.
So this is a bite.
This is New York. If you think about New York Harbor, it's right at the apex of a bight that consists of two angles.
Okay.
And a bight, of course, for anybody who doesn't know, is a harbor that's too broad really to be a harbor. It's And so, the wave action, storm action, if things are coming from the right direction, focus on that area around New York City. So even though it's in an area where you would normally expect action to be lower because of the landmass around it, it can have increased problems.
Well, they have had problems in the past, right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's move along. Let's take a look at this picture here.
Yep. We have an item from Clean Technica, and we have a picture.
That is some agroforestry.
Yeah.
And this is part 2 of the article that we talked about.
This is part 2.
Above.
That's right.
A pathway to 350 ppm, part 2. Carbon farming can deliver.
Inefficiencies in how we obtain energy to power the human body provide a lifeline for us to get out of the climate crisis. In other words, this is the low-hanging fruit. We have the land we need, we just have to use it better. By reducing the amount of land we need for food, we free up land for carbon sequestration in forests.
Well, from the article, the land required to produce a kilogram of protein from beef is 14 times greater than the land required to produce 1 kilogram of equivalent protein from beans, corn, or potatoes.
Now, you know, I'm never impressed by this because beans, corns, and potatoes don't produce equivalent protein. They produce vegetable protein, which is not the same.
Not exactly the same.
And I'm not saying that everybody should go out and eat beef or that people are wrong if they try to avoid it, but we should try to be accurate here. Human beings need a certain amount of animal protein. Cows get animal protein. They're entirely their
They're
diet.
eating bugs.
They eat a lot of bugs.
Yeah.
They do, and you know, we can get protein from animal sources. If you want to get very strict about eliminating red meat and things like that, you can get protein from crickets.
They say they taste good.
Well, you know, there was somebody, I don't remember who it was, it might have been Angelina Jolie, but some famous woman who had a bunch of adopted kids.
Yeah.
Wanted to make sure that each of the children that she had understood as well as possible the culture of the part of their world that their ancestors lived in. And one of the children, I think, was from Myanmar or Thailand or one of those places. So she got crickets, which are used a lot.
Crickets in Thailand are a delicacy.
Well,
I tried to eat them and I couldn't.
I had a friend who you know, I said, you know, he had gone to Thailand, and I said, how was the pad thai? And he said, well, you know, pad thai, it's good in some places, not quite as good in others. But there was one thing, no matter where you go in Thailand, it's always good, and that is fried crickets. Anyway, when this woman gave her little son fried crickets, this turned into everybody wanting fried crickets.
That's interesting.
And
they say they're good, but like I said, I couldn't make myself eat one.
Okay.
Well, nearly 60% of the world's agricultural land is devoted to raising beef.
Yes.
We can produce the same amount of protein from plant sources with a 93%
Tom,
reduction.
hold on a minute.
In land
We should go back to the beginning of this because we're going to have to edit this.
We what?
We're going to have to the show's going to have to be edited to take this little sequence out.
You want to do it from the beginning?
Yeah, from the beginning of this, which is we're back to, let's see, Clean Technica, agroforestry. We have the picture up. Pathway to 350 ppm. Okay.
A pathway to 350 parts per million, part 2, carbon farming can deliver.
Inefficiencies in how we obtain energy to power the human body provide a lifeline for us to get out of the climate crisis. We have the land we need, we just have to use it better. By reducing the amount of land we need for food, we can free up land for carbon sequestration in forests. And the thing that I would say about this is
It's a vegan problem. you can live on vegan food, but you do have to add a little bit of animal protein.
That's the thing I was going to say.
Diet.
And the animal protein doesn't have to come from cattle.
No, it doesn't. It comes from, as we mentioned, crickets.
Crickets. we've talked about this before, and I talked about a famous woman who had a number of adopted children from various parts of the world, and she had decided that she wanted each of her children to understand the culture that they came from. She had one, I think, was from Thailand, so she gave him Thai food, which included fried crickets.
Which is a delicacy.
And the next thing you know, every kid she had wanted fried crickets.
They all wanted fried crickets.
Because they taste good. I had a friend who went to Thailand, and he said that fried crickets, he said pad thai, it's a little spotty. Some places it's wonderful, some places it's not quite wonderful. But the one thing he said was good everywhere was fried crickets.
I can believe that.
But crickets are not the only food that you can get, and I think that there's a lot of foods that we just pass up.
Oh, sure.
You know what I've been told is good? Roly-polies.
I don't know what they are.
They're little bugs with lots and lots of legs. They're about that big, and you find them under rocks and stuff.
Like centipedes.
No, they're
Millipedes.
They're called pill bugs. They're really
yeah,
tiny,
I know those
or
things,
sow bugs.
Little gray things.
Yeah, and there's two kinds. They look pretty much alike, but one of them rolls up and the other one doesn't. And the one that rolls up, I'm told, tastes like shrimp.
I can believe it. Hey, you're more closely related to shrimp than they are to us.
They are indeed. They're also more closely related to the other ones, which I'm told taste like gasoline. Nevertheless, perhaps we should
take away from the article.
Yeah.
The generation that is alive today will determine the future of humanity.
Well, there's no doubt about that in my mind. And we've got to get on it.
Yeah, let's move up to Scotland.
And maybe what we should do is help. What's the name of the senator telling Donald Trump that the climate crisis is? We were talking about him earlier in the show.
Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham, yeah. Help Lindsey Graham tell Donald Trump to pay attention. Okay, you want to go on?
Yeah, let's move.
We have an item here from WWF UK.
World Wrestling Federation.
I don't think so. I think this is the World Wildlife Fund.
Scotland's wind could power every home across Scotland and the north of England.
Figures provided by Weather Energy show that between January and June, Scottish wind turbines provided enough electricity to power the equivalent of 4.47 million homes for those 6 months. That is nearly twice the number of homes in Scotland. And of course,
they just had a pretty windy spring down there.
They did, but what they're saying, and I'm getting this not just from this article, but from others, what they're saying now is that they're hoping that by 2020, just around the corner, they're going to have enough electricity to power not just their homes, but their industry and basically everything. They're going to need no fossil fuels, no nuclear energy.
Well, they're certainly putting up the turbines.
They're putting up the turbines, most of which are offshore, but there's a lot of them onshore in Scotland.
Yep.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, July 16th, and we have a picture of a motorcycle.
That's an interesting picture.
Yeah, where's its engine?
Huh? What?
This is not going to be a loud motorcycle. And by the way, in case you ride on motorcycles, you will not be able to burn yourself on the exhaust pipes from this baby.
I don't think so, because there aren't any. It's called the Livewire.
Yeah.
The Harley Davidson Livewire goes from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I can't conceive of that. It's a 145-mile range, and it costs $29,799.
Yep.
So it's $30,000 for that thing, folks, and it doesn't even make noise.
Yeah.
How can they sell a Harley that doesn't make noise?
I don't know. This is from Clean Technica. Will an electric motorcycle make Harley-Davidson great again? 5 years in the making, its Livewire electric bike will begin production soon, and you can reserve one online today. For $29,799, a buyer gets a bike that screams to 60 miles an hour in 3 seconds. And
I don't see how you can even hang on to the handlebars like that.
Well, I called Nancy Ray Mallory, who is the editor of
Green Energy?
Green Energy Times. Have you ever met Nancy Ray Mallory?
I don't think so.
She's a very pretty woman. And I think it was 1984, 85, 86, 87, something like that. She was the first runner-up in the Miss Harley Davidson World Contest.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
And she owns 2 Harley Davidson motorcycles, which she loved to ride around on, although she doesn't do it much anymore because she's getting older, and older people are worried about spilling.
Well, the article sort of covers that. It says the wild bunch has turned into the mild bunch. And this is another one. Harley buyers today are almost as old as Buick owners.
Oh, no. Well, at any rate, this thing, there is an item in the statement in the article that I think people should be aware of. According to this, it's a 145-mile range, but not at 60 miles an hour for the whole range. And the person who wrote the article did a little calculation and said, well, that range is gonna be reduced a lot if you try driving it at full speed.
Well, wind resistance.
Wind resistance, that's right. That's what it's all about. We have another article from Clean Technica now.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And the picture doesn't come up till the next one. So
that's right.
When it comes, this is a brilliant article.
Yeah, I think
when
so.
When it comes to automotive CEO longevity, I'll start again. When it comes to automotive CEO longevity, Tesla's Elon Musk is now king. La-di-da.
La-di-da. This is really surprising when you consider all things. Elon Musk is famous for making bold claims and big bets and then pulling off what seemed to be impossible. Now he has another interesting claim to automotive fame. He is the longest tenured CEO in the automotive world, and that is an amazing feat.
Well, I read the article, and there's not a lot of good stuff in the article, but the question, it spends a lot of time discussing what qualities a CEO needs.
Yes.
So if you're interested in hiring a CEO, read the article.
I have a feeling that Elon Musk is not going to be available to be CEO of any place else anytime soon.
Why do you say that?
Well, because he's got enough going on with
the car and
Tesla.
The Powerwall.
It's not just the car and the Powerwall. For crying out,
SpaceX.
SpaceX.
Space, yeah.
And he's got what's that thing? The Boring Company.
Yeah.
The Boring Company.
Well, they're very boring.
They do a lot of
They
boring.
bore.
I think he must have got quite a chuckle out of that. Anyway.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We do, and this picture is from CNN.
And let's pull it up here.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like Abu Dhabi to me.
It doesn't look at all like Abu Dhabi, but I got the impression as I was doing this work that actually is Abu Dhabi.
Oh, it is Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi is replanting mangroves in the fight against climate change, and that is a bunch of mangroves.
Yep. Abu Dhabi, the coastal city of Abu Dhabi is threatened by both rising seas and increasing heat of climate change. By planting mangrove trees along the coastline, it is protecting the land from erosion, wind surges, and floods, and it's drawing down CO2 from the atmosphere.
There's another CNN.
Yes.
And there's a video there that's worth looking at.
Yes.
Why Abu Dhabi is protecting its mangroves. About 3 minutes.
Well,
It's interesting.
I have a question for you, Tom. Do you know anything about mangroves?
Well, they're kind of big shrubs or small trees, as the picture is there. They grow in brackish water.
They grow in salt water, actually,
Yeah, really.
but they stand right in the water.
Yeah.
So the water comes up and it washes.
As you can see by the picture, they grow quite thickly.
Yeah, but the thing that I'm wondering is when you get to the land, the land part of this thing, they don't grow in there.
Not very well. They thin out.
They thin out. And then what happens? What's next to those mangroves? And the reason I'm asking is because there's other trees that will grow in soil that's very salty. But they want soil. So beyond those mangroves there could be other trees.
Yeah.
And those other trees will bring down carbon dioxide, but the whole mass of that thing will put water into the atmosphere, which means that the humidity goes up in that area.
Okay.
Which means that you're starting to, this is geoengineering I'm talking about.
Okay.
When people think about geoengineering, a lot of times they're thinking about putting sulfur trioxide into the atmosphere or something. I'm talking about planting the trees. What we've been talking about in this show, when we're talking about planting trees to draw down carbon dioxide, that is geoengineering.
Yeah.
And I think that you could quite possibly reforest large parts of the planet by doing planting that starts at the water's edge
of the mangroves,
and then goes inland.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
makes sense to me.
well, you know, I'm not enough of a meteorologist or biologist or whatever to be able to say, but it just
Well, Abu Dhabi's got some problems. It's
Yeah.
vulnerable to the impacts of climate change.
yes,
Rising is, it's a low-lying country right on the water,
yes,
and it's not very thick. If you
and
will.
it's not the only country in that region that's like that either. There's a whole bunch of little countries that are
Well, they call them the United Arab Emirates,
Right.
and it's really about 5 or 6 countries.
yeah.
Used to be all controlled by the British.
Yes, before that it was controlled by the Ottoman Turks, I think.
It was, yeah.
And the Ottoman Turks didn't.
They owned everything down
The
that
British went in and negotiated to make Kuwait part of their empire,
way. Uh-huh.
and neither
did.
Britain nor Kuwait ever bothered telling the Ottoman Turks that they had done that.
Oh, yeah? Well, one of the problems, again, with the Emirates is it could become too hot to live in.
They could. Riyadh could become too hot to live
Yes, yes.
in, and that
It's
isn't
almost
on the.
that- it's almost
It's
that
almost
now.
that now. Yeah, the Arabs have got good reasons to invest in renewable power.
Well, the article says mangroves trap more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into their extensive root system.
Yep.
And they've planted, this is Abu Dhabi, 3 million saplings.
Wow.
So they're going ahead with it.
We are up to Wednesday, July
It's the
17th.
last day of the week, isn't it?
Yep, and we have an item from the Business Leader.
Renewable power outstrips fossil fuels in Europe. That's interesting.
Yep, in the first and second quarters of 2019, for the second consecutive year, European renewables produced more power than fossil fuels. Renewable projects generated 245.8 terawatt hours of electricity in the 3 months to June 30th, that's the second quarter, while fossil fuels produced 202.7 terawatt hours. So you're talking about 206 of renewable versus 203 of fossil fuels. That's getting to be a big difference.
Well, it is starting.
Yeah.
And it's the largest share of renewables is hydro.
Still,
Okay,
yes.
Still. But solar and wind are catching up quickly.
Hydro is not growing very fast.
Well, it's too expensive to put in now.
Not only that, but you got to give up land for
Yeah.
water if you're going to do it. There's a lot of issues with hydro in a lot of places. We've talked about run of the river hydro
River
and
hydro,
so forth.
which would make sense in
It
Vermont.
makes sense, but
because of all of the flood control dams
Yes.
they put in.
Yeah, there is a future for hydro, I think, that is not environmentally problematical.
Well, up in Canada, up northern Canada, they can put in all the hydro they want because there's nobody really living there. There's native people, but they're dispersed.
Yeah, and a lot of them live on rivers. I think we're going to have an article next week about a hydro project in Alaska, which is just run of the river. Okay, we should probably continue to our next item, which is from Clean Technica. This is another depressing.
That's
picture.
Yosemite.
That's Yosemite. Yosemite National Park.
PG&E wildfire policies provide opportunities.
These are opportunities for Tesla, Sunrun, and others. PG&E went bankrupt because fires started from its power lines. And I want to point out their bankruptcy is partly a result of the fact that under California law, they're responsible for fires that start at those lines, even if the fires were not due to their negligence.
Oh.
This is a serious problem for them.
They're going bankrupt. So
yeah. A Wall Street Journal story says that to avoid that problem, the problem of fires starting at the power lines, it has begun notifying customers in high-risk areas that they may have to go without electricity for days at a time when the risk of wildfires is high.
Well, more than 5 million customers could be affected.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what that means is, if there could be a fire in your area, we're going to cut the power, so you're not going to be able to get water from your well.
Well, it's stirred interest in rooftop solar.
Yes,
okay?
I guess it has.
And other kinds of behind-the-meter energy storage products.
I guess it has.
Traditional electrical grids are 100-year-old technology. Okay, they really are. Microgrids that distribute locally produced electricity solves many of the resiliency issues that conventional grid operators need to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So microgrids are going to become more the norm.
You know what this reminds me of, Tom, is that a year ago, or maybe a little longer, we had an article that we talked about a vineyard when there were a bunch of vineyards in California burned down, and there was a vineyard that
had their own.
They had a microgrid that was solar powered, and that microgrid had power to it. So after they evacuated,
putting the fire out.
After they evacuated, the microgrid still had power, and their irrigation system was tied to the microgrid through a computer that could be operated without telephone lines from remotely.
So it was automatic.
So they were able to monitor the situation and irrigate the.
And they saved.
Their operation
yeah.
because of this. Yeah. Okay, we're up to our last item for the day.
Climate change driving growth of California wildfires, so a study says.
Climate change caused the increase in size of the wildfires occurring across California in the last 50 years, according to a study, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking well, published in the journal Earth's Future. The cause of the increase is simple. Hotter temperatures cause drier land, which causes a parched atmosphere.
And there's a video here, and scientists say that Paradise, the name of the town, is a warning. Okay,
oh yeah,
it's 4 minutes and it's grim. It
is grim.
It's a grim video.
It is absolutely grim, and you know, this is something where California is going to be putting a lot of energy, because the damage that's from these wildfires has increased 500%.
Absolutely.
And this is a serious problem.
The article says it slightly differently. It says they've increased in size by 8 times. And annual burned area has grown by 500%.
Yeah.
Increases in atmospheric aridity works to drive fuels and promote forest fires.
That's why we need mangroves along the coast.
California citizens need to be prepared for continued increases in wildfires and the risks to property and health that come with it.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of this stuff, folks.
Oh, this is going to continue going. And when we talked about that 350 parts per million, or runaway climate change, what they're saying is we crossed that point years and years and years ago.
Yeah, we
and
have.
Above that point, we can have runaway climate change, which means even if we stop putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere altogether, if we could do that today, we would still have increasing climate change.
We have to get that carbon dioxide
out
of the atmosphere.
The
cheapest and best way to do it is forests.
Yes.
And you know, right here in Vermont used to be very much a farming.
Yep.
It's not anymore. And the farms are lying fallow. You know, if they grow anything at all, it's hay.
Yes.
And they should all be turned back into forests.
Yes.
And could be.
Yeah, they could be. But we've got an enormous task on our hands here, and we have to take care of it. Anyway, we hope everybody has a perfectly lovely week, just as that sign there says. Come back and visit us next time.
Yeah.